Hello, welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name is Duchess Loveline. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, hello. So I have just finished recording the first chapter and the first section, or the first section of the first chapter of the BTS book. And it's gonna be up soon, I promise. But I just want to continue to reading or listening, actually both listening and reading to the second section of the first chapter, which is chapter 1 Soul, Big Hit Entertainment. So that's the second section, and I will be starting that right now.
Big Hit Entertainment. About a month and a half before this, in the beginning of November, Min Yoon-gi, who would debut as Suga of BTS, had arrived at Shinsa Station Exit 1, just as J-Hope would, and was looking for the dorm.
My parents dropped me off. There's a practice studio in the basement of the Yujong restaurant near the Chonggu building. I stood there until P-Dog came out and took me inside. My parents told me later that I looked like I was being dragged off somewhere.
Suga was 17 years old at the time. He was a bit too young to leave his hometown of Daegu to come up to Seoul just because he wanted a career in music. But in Korea, it is difficult to grow into a mainstream artist if one doesn't happen to be in Seoul.
I was in a dance crew in Daegu, and there was a studio I worked in. But the pie was just too small. We might have an event gig from time to time. Sometimes we were paid in tickets for our performances, not money. Not that we were doing it for the money necessarily, but I wonder if we should have at least been paid enough to buy a meal. And a lot of times, we weren't paid even that.
What?
By the time Suga entered Big Hit Entertainment, he was already a paid songwriter working in Daegu.
Wait. We're just not gonna gloss over that part that where it says he was paid in tickets instead of money. It reminded me of those, how do I put it? Those kind of clients that would try to get away with scamming. Honestly, that's what it is. It is scamming the people. They ask for a gig, or usually the independent contractors, where they'll be like, oh, I need you to do this for me, but I'm not gonna pay you what you're worth. I'm gonna pay you in exposure. Honestly, unpaid internship. That's what it is for me. But the unpaid internship that does not lead to being hired for that position, that to me is a scam. That to me is the whole for exposure bullshit that people use to take advantage of young and desperate people. Because best believe, if you have a backing to your name, if you come from a rich household or a well-to-do household, you're not going to be in any of those like for exposure kind of jobs or gigs or anything of that sort, because they would know to actually pay you stuff. If you come from a a household with a well-to-do name, like your name carries weight, your father's name, your mother's name, your grandparents, something in your household carries name, they're not going to try to scam you that way. They only do that to no-named, young and desperate people. It is absurd. And for so many places, so many types of industry, they don't consider that a scam. They don't consider it as something to pretty much, abolish? Yeah, that's the word, abolish. Like, they consider, okay, what do you mean you want to pay me in tickets? What am I going to eat the tickets? What am I supposed to do with the ticket? And the thing they would try to say sometimes, because I've seen it, obviously I don't know how it is in Korea, but I would posit that it's not particularly that far off, where they'll be like, well, if you really didn't need the ticket, you might as well sell it off and then use the money to get a meal or whatever. But the thing is, now you're doing extra work for them as a salesperson, because first of all, the organizers of that event were incompetent enough that they couldn't sell out their entire tickets. Incompetence, yes, I'm that harsh. They're incompetent enough that they couldn't sell out all their tickets so that they can actually have money to pay Yoongi what he's worth. So instead, they're trying to cover up their incompetence by giving him ticket as compensation, because they're expecting him to either actually go in an event and then go to the event and then fill up the seat so it makes it look like more people are interested in what the organizers have to offer, or B, expecting him to sell the tickets and then he can get the money from that sale. But the thing is, they're indirectly hiring him as a salesperson without actually hiring him as a salesperson. So he's now going to be expected to do two jobs. One as whatever they already hired him for, whether it's, I don't know, he said he was in a dance crew, so dancing, I don't know. Or two, like they're hiring him for dancing and being a salesperson, but they're only paying him for the dance that they were hiring him for. Like it is such a scummy thing to do, to take somebody who is young and desperate, nowhere to go, or at the very, no prospects initially. You take them and then you only pay them for one job, but you expect them to do both jobs. I've seen it happen very often, and it is so egregious. But the most hurtful and annoying and just enraging thing in the first place to do would be, most of the people who do it don't consider it to be a scam, don't consider it scummy behavior. They're completely okay with this kind of bullshit tradition being passed down, where their next employer or the next person coming after them, is okay for them to not pay people what they're worth in money, in actually tangible things, in legal tender that can be used in anywhere, but you pay them in stupid ass gift card that is restricted to one store only, or you pay them in ticket. What am I gonna eat tickets? I come home from that night after doing whatever gig you want me to do, whatever work you want me to do, and all I have to show for it, tickets. Is that gonna put food on the table for me? Because now I have to go out of the house and then start hustling people to sell that tickets. Tickets that you, as an organizer who owns those tickets, are incompetent enough that you couldn't even sell out. Sorry. I feel like this is definitely going to be a very outraging thing to read, because I have heard that, BTS is very much a classic rags to riches story, but with every other rag to riches story I've read, both the ones in real life and the ones that are fiction, we mostly focus on the richest part. Like, let's get to the riches. Like, oh yeah, your rag story, it kind of sucks, it's heartbreaking, but let's get to the richest part. That to me has always been my main focus when I read a rags to riches story. But to then, now that I have to read this book and I have to parse through each word and really understand and digest it as slowly as possible. If you want to read this by yourself quickly, I've sent a link in the community post again where the PDF is there and you can read it thoroughly, and you don't have to wait for me to read through it slowly. But I want to read through this story slowly and understand exactly what is going on, especially in an industry I know nothing about. So for me, I'm really focusing on the rags part because that's what's being shown right now, and it's very, very annoying. Oh my gosh. Even just, we've had one instance of rags, and I'm just upset. I'm upset. I don't want to be upset, but yes, I'm upset. Anyways, so we stopped at him, being taken advantage of, because that's what it is. And I'm sure it's not just him, it's also his peers as well. And then that's another thing that makes us very insidious, because when something like this is happening, and it's not just happening to you, it's happening to you and your friends or people that are kind of in the same boat as you, you kind of think of it as, oh, that's normal, or that's okay. You kind of excuse it. But it's not okay. It's not normal. People should pay you what you're worth in legal tender, in where when you come home from the gig that you've done, you're able to go to the store and buy something to eat. You're able to go to your landlord and give him money for rent. You're able to use whatever you're paid for tangible things that makes your life better, because that is why you did the gig in the first place. It's not you're paid in something that when you come home, you can't even stay home. Now you have to go out again and start hustling to sell whatever it is you're giving, so that you can then earn money, then earn legal tender for you to go around and then buying food or paying your landlord or whatever, okay? You can't pay your landlord in a fucking gift card. If I get paid in I do a job and I get paid in Home Depot gift card. What the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Eat it? I'm supposed to eat the gift card? I can only buy stuff in Home Depot. But at the same time, oh, by the way, if you don't know, Home Depot is a store that sells things for home. So think of hammers, nails, wood, whatever. You're not finding food in there. Maybe a couple snacks, but you're not finding food in it's a store. What am I supposed to do with gift cards for a store, tickets for whatever stupid ass event? I don't care. Just pay me what you're worth. You know that ticket is worth, say, $10. Give me the $10. Why would I want the tickets? But they know what they're doing because they want to take advantage of these young, ambitious people that are also very desperate. It's not just in the industry, in his industry. It's not just in Korea. It's not just in the dance industry, because he said he was in a dance crew, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I was in a dance crew in Daegu. So it's not just in Korea. It's not just in the dance industry. It's not just in the entertainment industry. Even outside of it, you have employers, clients more than happy to scam the people that they try to employ for a job that they want to get paid for. It's sickening. It really is. Okay, let's continue. By the time Suga entered Big Hit Entertainment, he was already a paid songwriter working in Daegu.
He attended music Hogwans to learn MIDI, was introduced to composers, and went from studio to studio doing all kinds of work. Back then, there was no arts high school that taught mainstream music in Daegu, which is why for a time he studied classical music with an eye on entering arts high school that way. He learned different kinds of music from various musicians, composing everything from school songs to trot. But for a teenager dreaming of a career as a professional musician, especially a teenager obsessed with hip-hop, his prospects outside of Seoul were slim.
Hip-hop wasn't very mainstream in Daegu at the time. This was when people made fun of rappers, calling them hip-hop warriors. And when the hyungs I made music with did ciphers in the park, we'd get maybe 20 people as an audience. And our first one had 2 people.
It was a fairly reasonable choice for Suga to head to Seoul, in retrospect. Indeed, Suga and J-Hope had deliberately made the decision to enter the idol audition process before joining Big Hit Entertainment as trainees. J-Hope had undertaken auditions with other companies and already had specific dreams of debuting as a singer by the time his dance Hogwan recommended him for an audition with Big Hit.
His dance Hogwan. What is Hogwan? By the way, did they explain that? Dance Hogwan. Is that like a teacher or something? He attended music Hogwans. Okay. Music Hogwans, dance Hogwans. So is that like a school? Is Hogwan school? Yeah, some of the Korean words that are thrown in makes it a little difficult. I mean, it's translated into English, so some things that are common in Korea or common sense and with people who are into Korean music, kind of for them it's common sense. For the rest of us on the outside, it's what does that mean? Okay, so he had to study classical music just for him to have some sort of music background, because there wasn't, or hip-hop at the time wasn't taken seriously in Korea. From what I understand, Korea is a relatively conservative country compared to the US. Not super conservative compared to, say, the Middle East, but it is relatively conservative. So I'm not surprised that hip-hop isn't really as embraced, to be honest. But yeah. It is everywhere. I'm Nigerian, and outside of like the major cities, which is Lagos and Abuja, prospects are not the best when it job prospects or something more mainstream. They're just usually not the best. That's not to say people can't have a fulfilling life outside of the capitals or the big cities. It's just when it comes to things more mainstream, more popular, more westernized, to be honest, the prospects aren't really there. So I'm not surprised. Kind of Like, why would you make fun of rappers, calling them hip hop warriors? Like, is that supposed to be an insult? Like, I don't know. Like, that doesn't really sound like an insult to me. Maybe it means, or it seems more like an insult in Korean, like connotation that doesn't really transfer very well into English. But it's kind of. Oh yeah, I wanted to say this. Their first cipher had 2 people as the audience. So usually when people say stuff like that, the thing that comes to my mind is 2 people. Oh, your mom and dad, like those 2 people. But can you imagine starting off that small and then look where they are now? Like, yeah, damn. And I'm pretty sure that he was the only one in this dance Hogwan that, made it to BTS. Okay, so he had both a music Hogwan and a dance Hogwan. Yeah, I'm thinking like a school Hogwan at school, maybe. Okay. Where did we stop off? Oh, J-Hope had undertaken auditions with other companies and already had specific dreams of debuting as a singer by the time his dance Hogwan recommended him for BTS. Oh, okay, so J-Hope had dance Hogwan. Suga had music Hogwan. So if Hogwan is school or community, right, his dance community recommended him. But no, that doesn't make sense. So maybe Hogwan is like a school teacher or something like that. No, because they would have said teacher. Point is, they both decided to deliberately make the decision to enter the idol auditions process. So they knew they were going to be idols. They decided to audition as idols. Okay. But they also J-Hope wanted specifically to be a singer. Even though it's his dance school / teacher that recommended him. So he was a good singer, but he must also be a good dancer already. And so his dance people were like, hey, you should audition as a singer. And yeah, because you can't tell me that J-Hope wasn't a bad dancer, like bad enough that his Hogwan was like, yeah, you suck as a dancer, why don't you go and debut as a singer? Like, that doesn't make any sense because J-Hope can dance. I've seen clips of him like dancing his little heart out. So it doesn't make sense that he's too bad of a dancer that they're like, you should go sing instead. So I'm assuming that he is a good dancer, but he's also a good singer, but maybe there wasn't space for him to have auditioned as a dancer, so they're saying he should audition as a singer instead. Or maybe they're just using singer here as an umbrella term to include singing and rapping and dancing. Either one of them. This is a bit confusing. Yeah. And I think stuff like this happens when it's translated, it's not coming from an English speaking perspective. So a lot of the words are not a little bit confusing in terms of like what they actually mean. But it works, They deliberately decided to audition. I understand that. Okay, so where we are as Korean idol groups. Okay.
As Korean idol groups became explosively popular in the 2000s, not only domestically but internationally, teenagers aspiring to stardom flocked to famous dance hagwons that not only taught dance but also introduced promising students to entertainment companies in Seoul. This was also how J-Hope's initial training was outsourced to Gwangju before he entered the dorm in Seoul.
Outsourced. Okay, that answers my first question, and that answered my question in the first video that I posted about this book. Outsourced. So it wasn't that Big Hit had multiple branches in the different states or provinces, but they only had the one in Seoul, but they might have had like partnerships or like some sort of recommendation or just some industry connections with the other like entertainment spaces in the other states. So they're like, if people in those states visit those entertainment companies would be like, hey, if you want to audition, we know somebody in Seoul who has a company who's running an audition. Here's a ticket, or here's the information for you to, go in audition. So, okay, so Big Hit was a small company that have maybe partnerships or some like industry know-hows of other community centers. No, community centers is not the right word. Even maybe other entertainment companies, but no, entertainment companies would have snatched up the talent. Just like, for example, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. If I own an entertainment company and I need people who know how to sing and know how to dance, I'm going to keep an eye out for the singing schools and the dance schools in Seoul, but also keep an eye out for the on the singing schools and dance schools in other states as well. So outside of Seoul and within Seoul, I'm going to try to make connections. Like I'm at least going to know a teacher within a school in another state and then in all the states. So that's how I would build my network, so that if a promising student doesn't appear in Seoul, but it appears in, say, Gwangju, right? That, because I have that like connection, or me and that teacher are acquaintances at the very least, right? Business acquaintances. At the very least, I would know that if somebody appears there, they're going to recommend that person to me in Seoul. So I think that's how it happened with J-Hope. Okay. We're seeing a bit of how the business side works in Korea. So let's see. Yeah, I think Hogwan is school, because here it says famous Hogwan that not only taught dance but also introduced promising students in entertainment companies in Seoul. Yeah, that checks. That totally makes sense. Networking is important in the business industry, and entertainment is a really, really big business.
The Big Hit A&R people came to Gwangju and sat in on the auditions in person. I danced for them and then did 8 months of outsourced training after I succeeded in the audition. Once a month during this training, I made videos of myself dancing and singing to send to the company.
Meanwhile, Suga,
I don't know what A&R is, but from the context clues I'm gathering, it's probably some sort of like people who are coming to scout out talents. So I was gonna say admissions and records, but that's school stuff. That's not, actually what's probably the abbreviation in an entertainment industry. So yeah, probably people who go around to scout out talents. So they came to Gwangju and checked out J-Hope in person, and they're like, oh, J-Hope's pretty good. And so instead of immediately taking J-Hope with him to Seoul, he stayed in Gwangju and trained there. So either Big Hit didn't have a space for him to train in Seoul, or that's kind of how they do it as a norm there, where you were scouted, yes, you're given the, hey, congratulations, you were accepted, but you still stay in your initial location before you then are moved to Seoul for whatever reason. Made videos of himself dancing and singing to send to the company. I wish there are videos. I want to see where he started out, like how bad he was or how good he was, and then to see now where it's like professional level, like, oh my gosh, the clips of him dancing, ooh, baby. I was like, the way he moves his body is so... We'll get to that. Okay, meanwhile, Suga, who was already a professional songwriter, became interested in a particular person at Big Hit Entertainment. Who
was already a professional songwriter, became interested in a particular person at Big Hit Entertainment.
I always liked the songwriter Pang Si-hyuk. I really liked the Tiara song, like the first time, and learned that Pang had written that song. He wasn't on television or anything back then, but he was already famous as a songwriter among people in the know.
Oh.
For teenagers with limited insider knowledge of the entertainment industry, trusting a company recommended by one's dance hagwon, or taking an audition because a favorite songwriter happened to work there, was the best course of action. Even before the incredible success of today's BTS, Big Hit Entertainment in 2010 was already a well-respected company, more than worthy to be a young musician's dream company.
Oh.
Pang Si-hyuk, the current chair of HYBE, established Big Hit in 2005. And by the time J-Hope and Suga had signed on, he had raised a string of successful artists like 8, J-Lim, and 2AM to stardom. 2AM's Can't Let You Go Even If I Die, in particular, composed by Bang, was a massive hit that rocketed the team to supremacy. Big Hit Entertainment...
Wait, 2 a.m. 1 second. 2 a.m. I was listening to Apple Music the other day and was randomly recommended, like I think I didn't turn off autoplay or something like that, was randomly recommended a song featuring Bangtan Boys. And I was like, who is Bangtan Boy? Wait, let me pull it up. Let's see, where is it? 2 a.m. My library. Yes, okay. Let me pull it up on screen so you can see. Okay, so I was randomly recommended this song. My library. Where is it? See, this one. 2 a.m. Love You, Hate You featuring Bangtan Boys with a Z. So first I was like, who is 2 a.m.? Because I don't know them. And then the fact that it says Bangtan Boys with a Z is very confused, because the only Bangtan I know is, Bangtan Sonyeondan, right? That's BTS. But I know that BTS stands for, or Bangtan Sonyeondan stands for Bulletproof Boy Scouts. So what is Bangtan Boys with a Z? Like, where did that come from? And so I listened to it, and I was like, the voices of the featured artist, the Bangtan Boys, sounds familiar, but I still don't know who's singing what. Or please tell me if maybe this is BTS, But at the same time, it says JYP Entertainment, not Big Hit Entertainment. So it's a different company with a slightly different name as a featured artist. So anybody who's into K-pop, let me know, because I saw it and I was like, I need to ask. So I added it to my library. Should we react to this? Maybe I might react to this. I know I also want to react to the song that Suga really liked, which was Love You something. Oh, sorry, Like the First Time from Bang Chi-hyuk. So this is their CEO or founder. This is their founder. Bang Chi-hyuk is their founder. And but he was initially a songwriter, and he wrote a song that Suga liked. So we are probably going to react to this song. Why did Suga like it enough to sign his life away to Big Hit? Okay. I know none of these artists, except for the 2AM artist that was... Wait, I don't get it. Wait, what? I'm confused. It says here, by the time J-Hope and Suga had signed on, Bang Chi-hyuk had raised a string of successful artists like 8, J-Lim, and 2AM to stardom. But if Bang Chi-hyuk from Big Hit Entertainment created 2AM, why is 2AM under JYP Entertainment? Like, I'm very confused. Did they leave as a group to then go on to a different company? Is that what happened here? Yeah, that probably happened here, because this happened in 2010. 2010 was a long time ago, right? Yeah, a long time ago. No, what? Because right here, it says in 2010, Big Hit Entertainment. So even before the incredible success of today's BTS, Big Hit Entertainment in 2010 was already a well-respected company. So Big Hit Entertainment in 2010 was already a well-respected company that created 2AM. But in that same 2010, 2AM released a song featuring Bangtan Boys under JYP Entertainment. It's right here. What's going on? I'm confused. Okay, forget them. This is way too far off base. Whatever happened there, I hope they're doing well wherever they are. Can't Let You Go Even If You Die, in particular, was composed by Bang. Okay, where did I stop? I, I forgot. Okay, I'm just gonna continue from here. 2 AM's Can't Let You Go, Even If I Die in particular, composed by Bank, was a massive hit that rocketed the team to supremacy. Okay.
Was hardly a small fry in the scheme of things.
Okay. Big Hit Entertainment was hardly a small fry in the scheme of things, with a stable, successful artist and the owner and main producer of the company, well known for his ability to consistently crank out hits. So Bang Shi-hyuk was a big deal back then.
With a stable of successful artists and the owner and main producer of the company well known for his ability to consistently crank out hits. But the team Big Hit was trying to build at the time, with trainees like Suga and J-Hope, the team that would become BTS, was proving to be something of a new challenge for Bang Shi-hyuk. The making of a K-pop idol group is like the production of a Hollywood blockbuster. Everything converges into a single effort, including capital, planning, advertising, and PR, and even the brand value of the company itself. In spite of this, the industry was so competitive that only about 5 boy groups and 5 girl groups in a decade could be considered successful. Most of these popular groups came from what was known as the Big Three: SM Entertainment, YG Entertainment, and JYP Entertainment. These companies, like Hollywood's major studios, had the lion's share of capital and industry know-how.
I see. Okay. I mean, that's not really, yeah, that definitely checks out for sure, for sure. A lot of the times in entertainment spaces, most of them are really owned by like 1 or 2 companies. And then if you look even deeper, you see that the board or the investors of those 2 companies are kind of shared, and it's a mess of relationships that only benefits a few number of people, very few number of people. So even though those on the outside like you and I are looking at things and we're like, oh, there's so many options, the reality is there are not that many options. Even here in the US, like the really big ones are only a couple. Sony, Universal, Atlantic, like just very, very, very few. And I don't even know them really like that. And the more you dig, the more you realize that, oh, you have 10 options. A psych, those 10 companies are owned by these other maybe 5 companies. Oh, the 5 companies are owned by maybe only these 2 companies. And it's like this pyramid that only benefits the people at the top. And guess what, sweetie? You're not at the top. Yeah, it sucks, but it's the reality of the matter. Yeah, so I'm not super surprised that it's something similar in Korea. 10 successful groups in 10 years, because that's what they said. Only 5 boy groups and 5 girl groups in 1 decade. So only 10 successful groups in 10 years. That's a little too small, to be honest. But if you think about it, I would assume that K-pop isn't the only type of music in Korea. So they must have other genres as well. And 10 groups is going to be I don't even think it's going to be 10 groups, to be honest. I think it's going to be smaller than that. Because even here in the US, we're so many. We're hundreds of millions of citizens here in the US, or just people here in the US. And how many people are really that successful? Or mega successful? There are very few, a handful of people. But in each of the genres, you do have successful people. Like Drake is a big artist. I don't particularly like him. I don't like his songs. I don't know who he is as a person. I don't particularly like his songs that much. But he's really, really big. And a lot of people like his songs. So he's a very, very successful artist. But I would assume that because his lane is hip hop and rap, people in, say, the metal head genre may not particularly like his stuff, right? People in the, I don't know, opera genre, or like they like the opera stuff, are not particularly his fans, So in an industry, in a genre, you have the giants, the famous ones, the most successful ones, And then in another genre, you have other people who are successful. And then as a whole, you just have, it might look like, oh, there are many successful musicians in general, but when you really break it down, you're like, oh, there's only maybe one or two or three, or in this case 10 in the entirety of that one genre. So you breaking into something, you have to look at what is the genre you want to do, and then exactly how many people really are successful in that genre, right? If I wanted to go into rock, and I know that there are only, like, if I wanted to be a musician, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's not that hard. There are 50 musicians that are making it big. I can totally be one of those 50. But then I want to go into rock. And the reality is there are only 3 people in rock that make it big. Well, my prospects has just diminished from 50 to 3. So in this case, if you wanted to go into K-pop and you're like, well, there are 10 successful K-pop groups, guess what? What's your agenda? You're a boy? Well, look at that. Your prospects for being successful has just diminished from 10 to 5. So yeah, it might look numerous, and it might look so easily, like it's easy for you to be successful from the outside, but as you can see going into it, that's not the case. Being on Twitter, I actually thought that, wow, there are so many groups. There was one quiz that I tried to do where it's like, oh, name for Gen or something like that, and I couldn't name anybody. I think I could only name 2 people, and one of them I guessed. So, and I thought that there were so many groups, so many members, so many, like, it was just, to me, it just seemed like you go to Korea, you become successful. It is what it is. Like, there's just so many, but it turns out that is not the case. In fact, for them to be as many artists, maybe that's why there are so many members in a group. Because here you barely see anything more than 5, if that. 5 isn't too much as a group. That's why you only focus on the 1 or 2 members in that group here in the US. So you usually see like 3, 4, maybe mostly like 2, 3 as like a unit. And then most of the successful people are soloists or duos and stuff like that. But it would seem that if you only have a limited amount of group spots, then for you to maximize the amount of people that can be successful as artists, you have to have more people within those groups. So if I have 10 group spots, right? Group A, Group B, Group C, 10 of them, then for many people to be successful as artists, Group A can't just be 2 people. It would have to be 10 people in Group A. And then Group B as well can't just be 3 people or 2 people. It would have to be, 7 people. Just so that, like, if there are only 10 group spots and I want to maximize the amount of successful artists, I have to increase the number of people per group. And maybe that's why groups that I've seen, K-pop groups, have so many people. Like, there was one twice. They have so many people. I don't know how many there are, but I know there are more than 5. I know I counted. And there are so many more groups. I don't know, boy group. EXO has many. I know probably more than 5, I'm sure. I can't even remember because I don't. Point is, there are a lot of groups. So maybe that's why there are so many members in a group. If you only have 5 girl groups and 5 boy groups successful in just 10 years only. Yeah. That would make sense, but it's still going to be super competitive though. It's not easy. I need to start highlighting where I stopped because now I forgot where I stopped. Okay, I think we'll continue from here.
Big Hit, of course, had 2 a.m., but co-label JYP was the one that led the effort from training to launch. That was why for Big Hit Entertainment, the process of casting, training, and launching was a whole new venture.
Idiot! I literally should have just kept reading and then my question would be answered. So it's JYP is a co-label of Big Hit. What does co-label mean? I have no idea, but I'm assuming some sort of partnerships. So either JYP is the co-label of BTS in the sense that JYP and BTS are partners, or they're only partners when it comes to 2 a.m. They're not partners in everything, but they're only partners when it comes to 2 a.m. So that's why Big Hit had 2 a.m., but as the Apple Music showed, they launched under JYP Entertainment But like, if they're co-labeled, shouldn't it be JYP Entertainment and Big Hit Entertainment? Or was it that JYP was bigger, so they had, like, if there was only one spot for a company name, and because JYP was bigger than Big Hit, I'm assuming then JYP was like took the spot for the company name. Was that what happened? I don't know. But if JYP is the big three, then they're bigger than Big Hit, obviously. Okay, so BTS was new for Big Hit because JYP was the one who, knew how to do the training and all the process through that all the way to launch. But Big Hit doesn't know how to do it by themselves. So BTS was the only one to do it for them. So that means all the other people that that Big Hit had, the 8 and J Lim, were successful individual artists, while 2AM was the only other one that they, the only other group that they managed, but they could only manage it with JYP's partnership. Okay.
And it went without saying that this whole process was much more difficult and costly than simply launching a balladeer. Idol groups need simultaneous mastery of song and dance on stage.
A balladeer? What's a balladeer? Sorry, I don't know things. Look up. Balladeer. A person who sings ballads. What? A person who sings so that means the other people that that Big Hit had were people who normally only sing ballads. So they were soloists that only sings ballads. So for Big Hit to form a group, it would be much more complicated than just launching somebody who only sings ballads. I think that's what they're saying here. Okay. Sorry, I didn't know what balladeer was.
And all that singing and dancing need to be trained into them, which means enough practice space is needed to teach scores of trainees vocals and dance. For those like Suga and J-Hope, who moved away from home, as well as whoever happens to show high potential and is therefore deemed closer to debuting, room and board need to be provided. To prepare an idol group for their debut requires not only offices for the company itself, but literal spaces for all of the above.
Okay. I mean, it's considerate of them to also provide dormitory for people who are moving in from out of state and they don't have accommodation in state, because I know they hear nobody cares. If you're moving in from out of state, you're going to have to find your own accommodations. The company is not going to give you a dorm. You find an apartment by yourself. You might squat with a couple of people, but it's kind of nice that that's a consideration that they have. Is that free though? Like, because the company is providing this space, is it free for them, or is it something that they're gonna have to pay back later? My laptop's almost dead. Okay, so it's almost over. I'm just going to shut up and listen to the rest of it. Okay.
This was why J-Hope could only be taken aback by what he saw that Christmas Eve when he first entered the dorm. Big Hit Entertainment was a major company in the entertainment industry, one that a budding artist like J-Hope could trust to nurture his talent. But in some ways, the company was arguably closer to being a kind of startup, with administrative offices and recording studios in cramped quarters on the second floor. Pang Shi-hyuk used one of those tiny rooms for his artistic and administrative work, including meetings. It was so small that there was room for no more than 3 people, and that third person would have to sit on the floor. Instead of bringing all the trainees into the same building, Pang rented practice space and accommodations around the Cheonggu building. These spaces, like their offices, were only just enough for their most basic functions, which is apparent when contrasting Jungkook's practice footage from February 2013 with the BTS dance footage filmed in Hybe HQ.
Okay, let's go look at what he's talking about. Jungkook's... What? Can you... Okay, allow, whatever. Oh, that's it. Okay, I see. Compared to B, which is this one. Yeah, space is different. Space is for real different. Okay. My recording software, OBS, is not going to let me play any of the videos for whatever reason, so I can't watch them just yet. I'll watch them on a different time by myself. Let's go back. Okay, so the space is different. That's all they're trying to say. Okay.
In 2013, Big Hit clearly had everything they needed and more for a company of their size. But compared to the big three, they might as well have had nothing. One thing Big Hit...
Wow, okay. Yeah, compared to rich versus poor. I'm gonna see, I really like that the PDF version has these links that should better illustrate their points. But I want to see if those links are also in the book, because then if they're not in the book, yeah, that's money wasted, honestly. Let's see. Oh, that's so neat. Oh, so here in the PDF, it's like a footnote that takes you to a hyperlink, and then you can, click on it, and then it takes you to your browser where you can watch the video. The book has QR codes. So here you have a dot, and then that single dot has this QR code where it would show you Jungkook's practice footage from February 2013. And then the practice footage for the Hybe HQ has 2 dots that corresponds to this QR code. And then you can just, use your phone or your QR scanner, whatever, to scan it. And then it takes you to the video. So even though you have the physical copy of the book, you can still follow along when they're referring to videos on YouTube and whatnot. So that's very, very genius. I don't know how it comes off in the book, like if you could see it very clearly, but anyways, that's just, the QR code the book has the QR code. The link is on the PDF version. Okay, one thing Big Hit had a disproportionate abundance of was people. Okay, let's finish this before my laptop dies.
Had a disproportionate abundance of was people. Take the trainees, for instance. There were about 15 male trainees vying to become BTS. At one point, there had been 20 trainees competing to join the girl group Glam, which debuted a year before BTS.
Oh.
And importantly, Big Hit also had the producer and content creator Bang Seok, the producer P-Dog, and the performance director Son Song-duk. But for the 2 teenagers who had come up to Seoul from Daegu and Gwangju, the first thing that made a big impression, like Suga's comment about moving into the dorm, was the fact that there were a whole lot of other teens their age with similar interests. Suga remembers.
I went to the recording studio, and RM and Supreme Boy were there, and other trainees, and we got all excited just talking about music.
Okay. I wanted to point out that I know P-Dog. Because when we would listen to Jimin's Face albums and the songs on there, and we go to the credits to see which one he wrote and stuff like that, I would always see P-Dog. I didn't see a Son Song-duk, but it says he's a performance director, so maybe that's a choreographer or like their music video director. I don't know which one, but interesting. I wonder if they have any songs with their founder Bang Shi-hyuk being a songwriter for them. I want to see what that sounds like. They had a girl group called Glam with 20 people as trainees, and they already debuted. It says at one like they debuted a year before BTS, so they weren't successful because I don't know of a Glam. Can you imagine being the sister group to the BTS and nobody knows who you are? Goddamn. Are they still available? Anyways, yeah, Tiny Spaces. One of them, like if you had a meeting with Bang Shi-hyuk and like he wants to woo you, like he wants you to invest in his group or whatever, and he invites you to his office, you are the only person that could come into that office, because if you bring your assistant, they would have to sit on the floor. Can you imagine how difficult that kind of negotiation has to be? Like if I was a rich investor and you're telling me to come in and you want to pitch your group to me, you want to pitch your idea to me, and you were expecting me to come into a cramped space where my assistant, because rich people have assistants, would have to sit on the floor, like I'm not listening to you. Like, I'm sorry. Yes, it's poor people discrimination, but it is what it is. Like the way you present yourself and the way you present your space is very important for people to take you seriously. So if this book is saying that they have such a small space that you have to sit on the floor, like they must have so many people rejecting them based off of the fact that they are poor. The presentation of their business office is so tight and small, it reflects how poor they are. Who wants to go into business with poor people? I'm sorry. Like, yeah, I would be one of those people that would have missed the perfect opportunity to invest in BTS, because I would have judged them based off of their cover, their first impression, which is, you poor bitch. Like, what do you don't have much to say, to offer. Like, I would rather go into business with rich people than with poor people, because, well, rich people have already made it. That's why they're rich. Poor people haven't. You would have to go, if you're going to go into business with poor people, you have to go with faith and belief that that person knows what they're saying, that they've planned it out. There is, because they're poor, so there isn't a history of success, right? Because if there is a history of success, they squandered it, and that's why they're currently poor. So the amount of rejections they must have had, Bang Shi-hyuk in particular must have had, because at this point, none of these things matter to BTS members. They are only there to train, and that's it. Like, the actual administrative process of getting investors, getting capitals, renting practice studios and making sure it's close enough to the main building that, their trainees can go train and then come for whatever meeting or catching up or stuff like that, or announcements and whatnot. All of those, like, administrative work in the creative process, and like, not creative process in terms of marketing and whatnot, is going to have to come from BTS's company, which is Big Hit. And in this case, the founder, Bang Shi-hyuk, has to be the one to supervise it. And as we can see, the man is poor, the company is poor, everything about this is poor. So that means a lot of stress on him, a lot of pressure on him, because there must have been so many doors slammed in his face. Like, no matter how famous of a producer you are or songwriter you are, if that fame doesn't translate into money, and then doesn't translate into success enough for you to afford an office space big enough for your prospective business partner and their secretary to come in, your fame is just fame. Like, it's not translating to success. And they must have been so many closed doors in his face, and that translates to closed doors in BTS's face. Sit on the floor. I'm so sorry. I'm like focusing on that part because it's wild. It is wild. Anyways, that is the end of the second section of chapter 1, and this is BTS Big Hit Entertainment. So I will continue on with the rest of chapter 1, not today, probably tomorrow. My laptop's about to die. It's what, 3%, 4%. I'll upload this so you'll be able to watch the first one and the second one simultaneously. Yeah, so it's not just Big Hit BTS themselves that went through hardships. Big Hit as well went through hardships, and so I feel like this book is also going to show the level of camaraderie between BTS and Big Hit that eventually made BTS to be the BTS. Because BTS would not have been successful without Big Hit, and Big Hit would not have been successful without BTS. What makes BTS successful is the teamwork between BTS and Big Hit. Because how many times have you heard of a very talented artist that you're like, this person is underappreciated, underrepresented. They should be up there. They should have much more people knowing who they are, but they don't, because of the back end, their company, the people who are supposed to be behind them, propping them up, pushing them further, are not doing their job. They suck at their job. The communication between the people on top and the people who are supposed to support them is not there. So what ends up happening is the people on top, they fall and collapse, and everything, just goes poof in the air. And you have artists who are talented, but they don't have anybody to properly market them. And this, on the other hand, you have artists that are not talented. They're genuinely, objectively not talented. Maybe they can sing, but they can't dance. Or they can dance, but they can't sing. Or sometimes they can't sing or dance. Or sometimes they can sing and dance very inconsistently. Like, you watch them one time and you're like, oh, they're pretty good. And you watch them the second time and they're like, you're trash. For them the third time, you're also trash. You're still trash. What? And then maybe the fifth time, they're okay again. Like, and then in that case, you see those groups and you see like they're still very popular. You still have people knowing them and wanting to follow them up, and but that only happens because the people behind them are really propping them up. When you have a group when you have talent, and I'm talking about any type of talent, singing, dancing, acting as well. You have somebody who's talented, but you don't see them being given the flowers that they have to have. It means that their talent is not being properly marketed by the people who are supposed to support them. So their team, their company, their agent, the manager, somebody in their team is dropping the ball. And on the other hand, you have somebody who's not talented at all, quite frankly, or they're talented, but they're not consistent. But you still see them getting all the flowers and all the awards, getting all the recognition. And that's because the team underneath them, the team behind them, they're really doing their job. They're like excellent at what they do. The marketing skills is off the charts because they know that they have to put in the work to make sure that group looks much better than they actually are. Not naming names, but you know who they are. We all know who they are. Anyways, yeah, so to see that Big Hit Entertainment was also kind of going through it, regardless of the fame of their founder, Bang Si-hyuk, really enhanced the camaraderie that BTS themselves, as trainees who are going through it, would feel. Because if you're coming in and if you're coming into work, you suffered through a lot of the practice and the choreography times and the times you have to rerun choreography moves over and over and over again, and you come out from the practice room and you go to the office and you're seeing your boss working his ass off just as much as you're working your ass off. It kind of brings a level of camaraderie, wow, they're working so hard. Even my boss is working so hard. I should work hard as well. And then you have somebody on top working hard, somebody on bottom working hard. The total combination of those two things is magical, as we can see from BTS's success. If you only have one entity working hard, but the boss is not working hard, the other entity is not working hard, you're going to be feeling like it's not fair. I'm doing all the hard work, but you're not doing your hard work, so my hard work is rendered useless. And then you end up with somebody crashing and burning, or the project failing and stuff like that. So to see that BTS was successful because everybody in BTS everybody in Big Hit Entertainment, including BTS, were putting their best foot forward, striving and hustling so hard to make it work. yeah, not surprised, with their success of today. So, anyways, I will be filming the remaining ones tomorrow. My laptop is now 2%. I'm gonna go charge it and then, wait and then film it tomorrow and then post it. So, yeah, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I will see you when I see you. Again, apologies for taking so long. I'm back in the business of recording videos, and I have things going on well in my life now, so I would be much more consistent, I promise. So yeah, I will see you when I see you.